What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Chris Enriquez. I am your host, and really excited about tonight's show. We got a really special guest. I have Nancy Barille, who is the author of I'm Not Holding Your Coat, My Bruises and All Punk. Sorry, let me try that again. I'm Not Holding Your Coat, My Bruises and All Memoir of Punk Rock Rebellion. Nancy is the author of this book. She is a first wave American hardcore participant. She was managing bands, booking shows. She's seen it all. She's been around. Her book is really such an interesting read for anyone that's curious or interested in the early days, the early 80s, Minor Threat, Black Flag, SSD Control, Agnostic Front. So many great pictures, so many great stories and experiences, and this is the kind of stuff that, for me as a fan, I love to hear. I grew up in the '90s era, and so I'm just such a historian and person that's interested in this like archival history, and I think that what she has done here is so important and vital, and especially, I hate segregating. Of any kind, but just as a woman in the hardcore scene, especially back then, I feel like she's got so many interesting, such an interesting insight and so much to tell. So I have a million questions. If you have questions, you can ask them too. There's a question mark on the bottom of the screen, and I will try to get to those, but we're going to see how much we can get through in the next hour or so. But, check out her book. We'll talk about where you can order it and all that in a few. But without further ado, Nancy Barille, we're going to get her on the screen right now. Okay, let's see. There she is. There we go. Request.
Okay,
Hello.
it worked.
It worked. It worked. The one thing that's not working is my headphones. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, just a little nervous, It's this is late for me, like
I love that. It's funny because, I was just saying, like, I feel like the early days of the hardcore scene where you and Al and the whole crew and everyone you talk about in your book must have been so wild. So for you to say it's too late for me, I remember I'm reading about shows that started past midnight and crazy
right,
things.
right. What can I say? I just hope my technology holds up and everything is good. And so, yeah.
It looks and sounds fantastic.
All right, great.
And no need to be nervous. This is going to be a lot of fun. Thanks to you for joining Age of Quarantine, and for everybody that's watching right now. As I mentioned, if anyone has any questions, there's a question mark box at the bottom of the screen. I'll do my best to get to them, but I have some questions of my own. So let me just start by saying congratulations on this book.
Thank you.
I'm Not Holding Your Coat, My Bruises and All Memoir of Punk Rock Rebellion. When did the idea come about of putting out a book, and how did that come together?
So, it started with Reverend Hank Pierce, who, I don't know if you know him. He's kind of notorious slapshot roadie. He asked me one time to like write something. Did punk rock influence my teaching career, And so I wrote it, and it came out really good. So I submitted it to Education Week magazine, and they ran it, and it did really well. And then somebody asked me to do an ed talk. And then the next thing I knew, I was like, I'm going to write a book about how punk rock made me a better teacher, But I got an agent right away, but people either like the punk rock story or the teacher story. They didn't like them together. So I just pulled the punk rock story out because I kind of the whole hardcore thing had influenced me so much. I realized that I really wanted to talk about it. So I focused on that. And so, here I am. It took me like 5 years to get it all done, like I thought I was going to write a book, and here it is, but it's a long process.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially with the stories. I was just going to say, like, there's no way that we'll, I hate to spoil stories because we'll talk about a lot of stuff in the book, but for everyone watching, like, you're not going to get the real in-depth version without diving into
the book.
Yeah, and the pictures to match, which are
And the pictures, yeah.
amazing. Now, I love the title. I think it's just empowering and really cool for you to present it in that way as someone in a very male heavy scene back then. Let's talk about this. You know, give us your background of where you're originally from, and then maybe you can kind of like run us through how you came to discover punk rock and hardcore, how that entered your life.
Sure, sure. So I grew up in a upper middle class suburb of Philadelphia. I went to private schools, but always loved music, from a very, very early age. I had a record player, and jukeboxes were really big back then. And so, like, everywhere you went, there was always a jukebox, and you play the jukebox. And that's how I heard a lot of songs. And then as I got a little older, my older sister started listening to she moved down in the basement, to get away from us, to get away from me in our shared bedroom. And she would play Bowie and Lou Reed and like all these bands, and like I would hear it come through the floorboards, all this music, and she'd go to work, and then I'd run down and figure out, like what is that I was listening to. So I was like, she had Foghat and humble pie and stuff like that. I was like, no, I don't like this, I like this. And so then with Bowie, then I naturally progressed to like Iggy Pop, because Bowie produced The Idiot, and then in my first show where I saw Iggy Pop, Bowie was on keyboards. And so like that, and I was in the front row, and I think,
Wow.
yeah, and I read the book, like, like at one point I just felt compelled to like run up in the front of the stage, and like Iggy came down and he like gave me this like big wet kiss, which
Is that
was
Iggy and
like,
the Stooges? Iggy and the Stooges?
no, it wasn't the Stooges. It was like right after the Idiot album, so it was his solo stuff,
Okay.
So
Late
the
late
Idiot had just,
70s?
yes, 1976 or 77, yeah. And so like I'm young, and so like I was like so moved by that, and then everybody's like, oh, there's the girl that Iggy Pop kissed, and I wore that like a badge of honor. And so then Iggy, and then it was Patti Smith and Blondie, like the whole New York punk scene, Ramones. I saw the Ramones at University of Penn, and I loved them. And then it just got, it was explosive, like Eddie and the Hot Rods, The Damned, everybody. And then I was heavily into that scene. The Clash were like probably my favorite. I
Yeah.
moved. So after I went to a 2-year school, and then I to be a paralegal, and I got a job at a law firm in downtown Philly. And so I moved out of my house and got a little tiny apartment there. And then I was like running wild, because my dad was a Marine and he didn't let me do anything. When
Wow.
they let me go to concerts, which was, was pretty cool. But, like I had to be in at midnight. And so like I got my own place. And then once I did that, then I started going like to clubs and seeing bands. And I think it was really like, I liked a lot of English punk, like Flux of Pink Indians and Discharge and Antiposse. I loved all that stuff. Vice Squad, all those great bands. And but then I saw Black Flag with Dez singing in 1981,
In
and then I was like,
Philadelphia?
in Trenton, New Jersey, actually, at City Gardens.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I like this, like I like this kind of like, kind of like wild, energetic, physical, kind of angry music. It sort of appealed to me. And so then once that happened, then it was like hardcore all the way. And then I saw the Bad Brains, and forget it. That was it.
Oh yeah, I mean, you saw it all. As I was saying, from the book, you have chapters dedicated to like specific shows and incidents. I can't wait to get into that. But what was it about like because you went from like punk rock, which early punk rock, and even like Bowie, it's not like that abrasive. It's not like it's probably for the time it's a little out there, but like you went darker and more angry and more abrasive. What about like that like really abrasive stuff? What do you think made you gravitate towards
Yeah.
stuff that was so angry?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. Like I had a very oppressed, childhood. My dad, he was strict. I went to Catholic school, so like everybody was always telling, like I had like you know, I was like an angry kid, you know, and, you know, I was kind of like a rebel without a cause, really, because I had a pretty nice life, you know, I had a lot of privilege, don't get me wrong. But, you know, to me, you know, I was angry, you know, like I just, I don't know why, you know, but I just, you know, I love music, and I always liked the darker side of music. Even when I was like a little tiny kid, you know, always liked the kind of music that was like a little darker, you know, I like the Rolling Stones more than the Beatles, you know, like I always like, you know, I always like the more dangerous kind of thing. And, you know, I don't know why. I just, you know, I just did, you know, so yeah, you
I
know, that
totally
was,
get it. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I went to Catholic school and I grew up in a privileged town. But I was angry, and I can relate to everything that you're saying. And that music is, and the action of like being at a local show with all of the raw energy is nothing like it. Can you tell me so you talked about the first shows you went to see. So Black Flag, talk about that Black Flag show, and maybe just like some of your formative experiences sort of like entering this new thing that would eventually change your life, you know?
Yeah, so I was managing a band called the Sadistic Exploits at the time. And so, you know, we had heard about Black Flag, you know, like, you know, the scene was really cool back then. Like, I don't know, people just knew and told you, like, oh, you got to see this band when they come. And, you know, Skateboard Magazine, you know, told us bands to watch and like. And there was a guy named Lee Paris who had a great radio show. He played a lot of cool stuff. And, you know, I just really liked their sound. And so when I went to see them, you know, they were great. Like, I mean, with, you know, Des was singing, and, you know, really high energy, very dark, you know, very just wild, you know, and the show was insane. It was, you know, it was just really, you know, good. And I was like, I really like this, you know. And then, you know, the next band I think that came through town was TSOL, you know. And then, you know, Jack comes out in a skirt, you know, and I'm like, I love this guy, you know, like saying a big fuck you to everybody, you know. Like, I just thought he was, you know, TSOL was great. And
You're getting a lot of West Coast bands at the first run.
yeah, I did, you know. And then, you know, of course, the Dead Kennedys, and you know, just seeing all those bands. And then in the meantime, so then we decided we were going to start doing our own shows, you know, in '81, after we saw Black Flag and everything. And that's when we started renting out the Elk Center. Someone had done a show, our friends had done a show with Bauhaus there, and it was really great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a great venue. And so, you know, we said we were going to, you know, follow up and do some, you know, local punk bands type shows. And we did, and it was like huge fun. You know, we had great times, and, you know, I just wanted to keep doing it and seeing, like, if I could see a band like every night of the week, I would have at that time.
Yeah.
You know, like I was out all the time. I just, you know, I just love this. I love the scene. I love the people. I love the bands. I loved everything about it. You know, I loved being a woman in that scene. You know, and a lot of people, it wasn't, you know, it was not oppressive in any way. It was super empowering to me, you know.
Yeah.
And I always had a lot of respect. It was like having, like, you know, 50 big brothers, you know, like, it was, you know, it was a good place to be. You know, I felt like, oh, I can do some things here, you know, like, and it was fun. It was just like really fun. And I always had like a physical response to music when I saw it, where, like, you know, even back when I was seeing like Alice Cooper when I was like a sophomore in high school, you know, I always got like chills, and I always felt like I had to run up front. Like, you know, that was
You
like,
know, I
there's
totally can
nothing was going to
relate.
stop me. You know, I had to like get up front for everything, you know. So I don't know. It's just how I'm wired, I think.
Yes, I think, and so, well, okay, so back to your family though, because it sounds like your father was a Marine, and like strict household, pretty conservative situation, going to Catholic school. How does your family react to you going out every night and wearing these like outrageous outfits and coloring your hair and all this,
Yeah,
getting
see, like they didn't
tattoos?
know.
Okay.
They didn't know, because I had moved out, and I was living, you know, I was living in the city, and I came home like once in a while, you know, like my mother would come down and visit me in the city, but my mother was really cool, you know, and she, you know, I don't think she like, you know, absolutely approved, you know, especially when I was like, you know, spiking my hair and like, wearing a leather jacket. I think she thought, that was a little like unfeminine.
Right, sure.
Yeah, but my mom was cool. She didn't like, sometimes she was like, "Oh," but she didn't really say too much. And my father, like I saw them the holidays, and I toned it down on the holidays, like I, combed my hair down and
Right,
wore,
right. You go from like Clark Kent vibe to
yeah,
Walter,
yeah.
you go.
So, they didn't know, like a couple of years ago, some guys came and they interviewed me for a punk rock documentary about Philly. And they came to my dad's house because I was living up here. And they came to my dad's house and, you know, um, my dad was supposed to be out all day and he came home early, and they had all this equipment set up and everything. And then afterwards he was like, well, why are they interviewing you? And I was like, because Dad, I used to do shows and do stuff. And he was like, well, I never knew any of that. And I was like, exactly, Dad.
Oh
You
my
think I was
God.
gonna tell you that?
Well, I want
So
to also briefly kind of talk about this just to paint a picture because we're getting, an idea of like the difference of what the scene and climate was like back then, in a non social media world and where you can't just
mm,
go color, get pink hair and tattoos and all this stuff. There's a picture of you in a tattoo in your book that you got in 1981. Now, in New York, I know that tattooing was illegal until I think the 90s. So talk to me about getting tattooed in 1981. How do you go about getting a tattoo? What's the reaction like at that time? Everyone today has face tattoos and neck tattoos. It wasn't
yeah.
like that back then.
No, it wasn't. And I actually regretted my tattoo after I got it, but like, you know, um, it was legal in Philadelphia. So you could go. And so some of my friends wanted to get tattoos. And so we all went down and like, it's exciting when people are getting tattoos. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a tattoo. Like I'm going to get an Anarchy A, And so, and so, cause like that was
Yeah.
what you got, right? So I got I got the little Anarchy A, and then, tattooing is addictive, So then I go back and I get like Fight Back. And then I went back with the guy that I was dating at the time. And, he got something in my initial on his arm. And so then I got the little heart, and like, and my mother, the very first time she saw it, she's like taking Kleenex out of her pocketbook and trying that better not be real, like, why would you do that? Fight back. Like she's like, if you just had the little heart, it wouldn't be so bad. And like, there weren't a lot of women that had tattoos at all, And so after I had it, like, it was cool when I was around like my punk rock friends, but I felt really almost like judged by it from other people. And it just became like, you had to see it all the time. It was like wearing the same clothes all the time. I got really sick of it. And so after I moved to Boston, I went to a plastic surgeon and they cut it out. Like they didn't have laser surgery back then.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, so they cut it out. They just like completely cut it out. And then they put my arm in like this thing where like as my skin grew back, they like roll it down until, it healed up. And then like you can't even really even tell that I had anything there. Like it healed so well.
That's
Uh,
unbelievable. Really good thing you have
yeah,
that picture to show, though.
yeah, right. That's Gail Rush who took that. And so like I knew she had that picture, but I hadn't seen it in years and years and years. And so for the book, I was like, I emailed her and I was like, like usually when you ask people like, can you find this photo? They're like, are you crazy? Like, but she found it like instantly for me, and I was like, oh, Gail, you're the best.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so she let me she let me use it for the book. And so yeah, it's pretty cool. And like, we actually made little buttons out of them. So
I love that.
out of the tattoo.
You have saved so many incredible photos that the photos alone are worth buying the book, even if you're not somebody that's big on reading, and just to transport yourself. Because I mean, look, there are a lot of great photos that we've all seen in the American hardcore documentaries and all these things where you kind of see the stock images, but you have these exclusive photos that look like they were kept in great condition, and I can't get enough of them. When I look at them and just try to transport myself to a time that I wish I could have been around for, I really hope that you saved some of the clothes too and all that stuff, because it's great.
No, I didn't. And sadly, I wish I had I had some really cool things, and I wish I did save more of it, but I didn't. And the funny thing about the photos is, is that I didn't see a lot of those photos until like the past 5 years. You know, like there's
Wow.
the one of Bad Brains. I saw that for the first time, 2 years ago. My friend Karen, we became friends on Facebook, and she's like, I got a picture of you with the Bad Brains, and like there are a lot of pictures in there. Like Jimmy G posted one of me with Chris Enriquez, like literally probably 4 months ago. Like I never saw that before, so it's so crazy when someone says like, like it comes up on Facebook, like so and so has tagged you in a photo, and it's like, it's like from back in the day. You're like, oh God, like
Sure.
I'm scared to open this. Like, what outrageous thing am I wearing, or what outrageous thing am I doing?
Yeah.
So my friend Ricky Ercoli, he had a treasure trove of things, and maybe I saw one or two of them, but even like the cover of the book, I probably saw that for the first time like 7 years ago.
What an
Like,
incredible photo.
yeah, I love that photo. I love that's right in front of my house. And, it was, I just, I was so grateful to that guy for having those photos.
For sure. So and you mentioned you were managing bands, you were booking shows. Let's talk about how you went from being a spectator to being a participant on that level. Walk us through that a little bit. You mentioned one of the bands that you managed, but it would just be cool to sort of like understand that part of your life a little bit.
Sure. So, like I wanted to be a contributor, I wanted to contribute to the scene. I couldn't sing. I couldn't play an instrument. So like being in a band was not going to happen for me. And
Yeah.
what I was kind of good at was like organizing stuff, because I went to Catholic school. You had to do that shit all the time. And so, like fundraising and Girl Scout cookies and shit. So I was like, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. So I was managing the band. My boyfriend Brian was the singer of the band, and I like, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help them get a record out. I wanted to help them, do shows. And so that was how I could like give back to the scene. And then when I met Allison Schnackenberg, she was running a fanzine called Savage Pink. And so I wanted to write articles for her. I always believed in the power of the written word, So, I just wanted to do what I could to advance the scene.
Absolutely. And you were a huge part of it, obviously. So when you were managing, you eventually were managing SSD. Were you handling like booking, press, guarantees, record label
Yeah, answering
negotiations?
fan mail,
Okay. Okay.
doing all that kind of stuff. Like basically, like, Al had been running everything himself for a while, and he was like in over his head, like he needed help. And so if I could help him, I would. So, like I was, sending out records, doing that kind of thing. And then, calling clubs, booking and stuff. Sometimes like when they went to play the West Coast, he did that himself because he had been doing it for, he had connections and stuff. But whenever he needed me to do something, like, I would, I always, wanted to support him in his endeavors as well. I wanted to be a contributor, and so.
Good thing you were around a lot of straight edge people, so you didn't have to like wake up people who were hung over with needles in their arms or anything like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. They were, SSD was such an easy band to deal with because, they had a great crew with them. So when, you had to load equipment in and out, like, there was like 10 guys that would do that. Tony Perez, Andy Strahan, like Jake Phelps, like there was always a ton of people doing that. And then, in the late 90s or mid 90s, Al started another band called Gage. Jesus Christ, you can get, the band didn't want to unload like nobody wanted
Sure,
to do
sure, sure.
anything. And I was like, wow, I don't realize, how easy we had it with SSD. Everybody was like working, setting things up, it was like so easy.
Tell me about the shows that you booked. What were some notable ones? Maybe you can talk about like your top three most notable shows that you booked. Indulge us a little bit from back then.
Okay, so like probably the biggest, craziest one was Buff Hall with Minor Threat, SSD Control, Agnostic Front, Flag of Democracy, and Crib Death. That was a pretty notorious.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah. So that was and that was like a crazy show. That's the one where Ian got hit by a car, and we had to have a biker gang called the Wheels of the Ghetto Riders. They're a division of Wheels of Soul. to do the kind of security for us because people were getting beat up and jumped, you know, before the show. So they put out on the streets of Camden that it was a riders party. And so when they did that, the attack stopped. So that was probably, you know, the craziest show that I did. The first punk festival that I did was really special and near to my heart because, you know, back then you thought you knew all the punks that were in your city because, you know, you'd see them at shows or whatever. So when we did this show, like we flyered and we pasted everywhere and we went to the record stores all around the Philadelphia area and put up signs and everything. But we weren't sure who was going to come, you know, who's going to come. Is it just going to be like
like how big was the scene?
30 or 40 people, you know, that we know? And then I can remember like right when, you know, the time started, looking outside and there was a line around the block, you know, like the
Nancy,
place.
how big were these shows back then? Like, are you talking?
Oh, that one had to be like at least 400 people. Like, you know, maybe, I don't know if I'm seeing it with, you know, rose-colored glasses, but to me, that's, you know, what I don't know. Yeah, the venue was pretty big. So, you know, I would say, you know, and so like, you know, looking out, and I remember the band asked me to like thank everybody at the end and like come up and talk on the microphone. I had never spoken in a microphone before, you know, like it was an enormous thrill. Like it was so empowering. I was like, wow, like
how old are you when you were doing this? Like, are you a teenager or are you in your 20s?
No, I was about 20, you know.
Okay,
I was about 20, yeah. So, you know, like I just felt like a badass, you know, like, hey, we did this, you know, and I just wanted to do more, you know, I want to do more and more and more.
Yeah.
And we did Black Flag and Crucial Truth, which is a great band from Florida that not enough people know about.
So is that Black Flag with Dez still, or is Henry in?
No, Henry was with them at that point, you know. Yeah, there's good video of that, good photos from that. And then, you know, the shows that I did up here in Boston, the Minor Threat show, you know, that I got them a lot of money. That's actually not in the book, but I'm really proud of that show because I got them a lot of money. And so like they didn't give a shit about the money, but I cared, you know, and I wanted to get them, you know, I got them like I don't know, like 1750 or something like that. Which is a lot of money.
It's like we're killing it, you know.
Yeah, it's killing it now if you could get that much.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, right. No shows at all. Well, I did want to talk about the Minor Threat show. So I have questions in front of me. That's what I'm looking at on a cheat sheet. But so I'll jump around a little bit because you did already mention the Agnostic Front SSD Control Minor Threat show, which is fucking insane. There are stories in your book showing particularly a side of Ian MacKaye of Fugazi. We depending on who's watching this, you know him from Fugazi, Discord Records, Evans. You know, some of us know Ian from a different time where he was not cool with violence at shows. Not that he ever was, but you know, when I saw Fugazi, you weren't allowed to mosh or dance and stuff like that in the '90s. He was very against it. Your book is telling stories of a time that you know, there is a lot more violence and craziness, including this story about Ian at this show at the Buff Hall, which, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that show is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube. Yeah, it is on YouTube. And you know, just to come back a little bit, like I would not say our shows were violent in the shows, like the pits or anything. They were physical. They were energetic, they were physical, but they were not like I saw later on, they were not like that. They were, you know, they were much, you know, they were just wild, you know, like if you've seen the videos, you know, they were just wild, but they were not violent. And so the violence that we felt came from cops and it came from locals. You know, that's where that's where our real dangers were. So, you know, Buff Hall, the story, you know, I've told it endlessly, but I'll tell it again for you.
Indulge us, please.
Yeah. So, you know, Al told me not to book him into a war zone. You know, Al had a job at GE. He, you know, he spent a lot of money to get Marshall amps and really nice equipment. And he was like, you know, don't bring me to a war zone. And I was like, it'll be fine, you know, because I was living this crazy life that I didn't really have perspective, you know. Yeah. And so he picked me up in Philly and Camden, New Jersey is just a bridge ride away. So, And as we were driving, you know, to the place, and you saw like, you know, all this blight and, you know, like, you know, you could tell it was like a dangerous area, you know. I didn't know at the time that it was, you know, one of the most violent places, you know, dangerous places in the United States. It still, I think, is, you know, but like
Wow.
everywhere was rough back then, you know. So like we
Yeah,
were kind of,
Philly, New York, all of it.
yeah, you know, we were kind of fearless, you know. So we pulled up to the venue. I jumped out to find out where to load the equipment in, and I looked down the street and I saw this crazy guy. You know, he had dreadlocks and this wild look in his eyes, like driving the station wagon at a high rate of speed. And I was like, this guy's not going to stop, you know. And Ian had come out and talked to Al at the driver's side window, and luckily, he's pretty nimble. He saw it. He grabbed the top of the van and
So he's
jumped.
driving towards you guys,
He's driving straight head on. You know,
trying to run you over.
I just think he was out of his mind on drugs or something.
Oh, got
Yeah.
it, got it, got it, got it, got it.
Yeah, you know, from the look in his eyes, and I got, you know, I got a pretty good look at him, you know. And so Ian jumped, and luckily he did, or he probably would have been killed. Knocked his sneakers off. There were some kids skateboarding out in front of the venue. They ran, they got his sneakers. You know, he's down on the ground.
Jesus
Al hit the
Christ.
windshield. I think Tony Perez hit the windshield. You know, I was like, what just happened? You know, and we got the license number, and you know, they brought the guy back, but you know, they kind of the cop. Yeah, the cops kind of made it clear we didn't want to come back to Camden for any reason, you know. And so somebody took Ian to the hospital. He had a big, like, grapefruit on the back of his head. He had a calf injury, maybe like a broken toe. And there was a lot of questions whether the show was going to go on, because some of the, you know, some of the people did not, you know, in Minor Threat did not want to, you know, they were like, let's get out of here, you know, like this place is crazy, you know.
Yeah.
So, but once like the ghetto riders took care of things, you know, like things kind of settled down. And then
That's
inside,
like a local neighborhood crew, right?
yeah, they were a motorcycle club. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they, you know, and they were great. You know, they were just so nice to us, you know. And thank God, you know, thank God that they were, you know, that they really saved our asses that night. And so, um, I think, you know, like, I don't know, like maybe the show would have been just as good, but like sort of that danger that like, you know, we might not live to see tomorrow kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
every single band that played, the local bands, the, you know, Agnostic Front, like John Watson was singing for them back then, you know,
Original.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, everybody just kicked ass on stage. It was so amazing. And I can remember I was like, I'm going to sit like over here. So like, I don't get hurt, because I would get hurt all the time. So like my friend Steve I was videotaping, so I was like kind of right near him. You know, I had a really good spot to see, and so you can see those you know, you can see those pictures
Well,
and
it's
stuff.
amazing
So
because you're always up front in the pictures. Like in the Bad Brains photo, you're up front, you know, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But that's amazing. I got to watch that whole show on.
oh, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, the SSD footage is out there. I think that I'm pretty sure he only videotaped those two bands that night. You know.
So speaking of SSD, tell us about how your relationship with your husband Al started. Where did that begin? Because I mean, you guys have been together forever.
Yeah, but yeah, Jesus Christ, you know, like way too long. So,
How long has it been?
38 years.
Wow, almost
Yeah.
as long as I've been alive.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's nuts. Like, it's nuts when I think about it, you know? So what happened was I bought The Kids Will Have Their Say. And wow, I just thought that was the greatest record, man. I just loved that
Oh
record.
yeah.
And on the insert, there was a little thing at the bottom, and it said, SSD Control wants to play your town. And there was a phone number. And so I called it, you know, because I was like, I want this band to play a show in Philly, you know. And so I had a show in mind, but Al couldn't do it. They were already booked in, you know, somewhere else. So he couldn't do it. But we ended up talking for like 4 hours, which was, you know, super expensive back then. And like, we knew a lot of the same people. We liked a lot of the same music.
Just on the
you
telephone.
know.
Yeah.
So on the telephone, in fact, I didn't even know which one Al was when I was talking to him, you know, like I didn't know all the guys' names in the band, you know. So I remember like after I got off the phone, I was like, okay, I was talking to Al, like, which one is he? And I remember like looking at his picture, and he's like, you know, I was like, oh my God, that guy's like a little scary looking, you know.
Skinhead guy.
He was a little intimidating looking, you know. And at the end of the phone call, he said to me, like I could tell, like we both kind of didn't want the call to end, but like we had to because it was so expensive. So um, he said, my band is playing in Staten Island with the Dead Kennedys and DOA like
Oh shit!
next weekend, you know, how about I put you on the list and, you know, you come up. And I was like, I'll be there. I
Wow.
had no idea how I was going to get to Staten Island. I was just like, I will be there, you know? So I got some friends to drive up. Um, and I saw SSD play for the first time, and oh my God, like it was, you know, somebody described it as standing too close to the railroad tracks, you know.
Unreal.
They were unbelievable. They blew me away. Like I just thought they were incredible. And I was like, I got to talk to Al, you know, like I got to talk to Al. So finally I found him, you know, and we were talking, and, you know, the funny part of the story was I didn't really smoke back then, but for some reason, like I was nervous, you know, so like I had a cigarette, you know, I don't even think I was puffing it. I think I was just holding it, you know, and Al kind of looked at me like I had a gun in my hand, you know, he's like,
Wow.
do you smoke? And I was like, not anymore, you know, and I flicked it away into the gutter, you know, and like that, yeah, I never smoked another cigarette after that. But yeah, so we were talking, but then there was another riot, and you know, glass started smashing everywhere around us, and you know, we both ran. I went to find my friends, you know, before I got stuck in freaking Staten Island, you
The
know.
Staten Island riot, which Mike D, what's up, man, is commenting about that right now.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
kind of crazy. Yeah, it was a little bit crazy. I was, you know, pulling glass out of my hair on the way home in the car, you know, but um and then like, you know, we talk on the phone like a little bit, you know, and but I was like, Boston's just too far away, you know. And then MDC played at 2+2, which was a club in New York at the time, and with the Beastie Boys, and either I called Al or Al called me, and he was like, are you going to go to the show? And I was like, yeah, I am, you know. And so we ended up meeting in New York City, you know. And then that's when I really decided, like, I really like this guy, like, because Al's really different, you know. He's like, he says exactly what he means. He's like, you know, super direct. There's no bullshit about him at all,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Like, you know, he's just, you know, I think he's, you know, something a little weird about him, but like I appreciated that guilelessness, you know, like I appreciated like, oh, I can remember, like, give you an example. So I said to him, like, will you remember what I look like? And he said, yeah, you look like Karen Wallach from One Life to Live, which is a soap opera, right?
Okay,
Which
okay.
I had watched, you know,
I'm
and I
guessing
had
that's a
actually,
compliment.
yeah, you know, but like the fact that this like hardcore dude was admitting to watching soap operas, you know, like, and then I found out he's like a huge General Hospital fan, you know, we used to talk about it all the time. Like,
Oh my
you know,
God.
like most guys wouldn't, you know, like he was just like no bullshit. And I like really, really liked that about him. And so, you know, then I came to Boston, and then he came down to Philly, and then we were just like one of us has to move, and he had a good job, and I didn't really have a job that I was like super invested in. And so I said, I'll move, you know. And everybody was shocked when I said it. My parents, you know, like my
Yeah.
friends, people I worked with, they're like, you're not moving. You know, I was like, yes, I am. And I can't believe, you know, now when I look back, I can't believe I had the guts to just up and leave and move.
And
And
you've
I,
been there ever since, right?
yeah, I've been there ever since. Yeah, I moved. I
Yeah.
got a little apartment in Fenway, and then, you know, so that was 1982, and then we got married in 89. And
Unbelievable. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. It's like, you know, it's a
You're like the
funny,
Sid and Nancy of the hardcore scene.
yeah. Well, no, not quite, but
Well, the straight edge version.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. You know,
yeah.
like we, you know, we met cute, I guess, as they say. You know.
Yes, and speaking of legends, I mean, all these people are legendary. Which, by the way, I mean, I have to also wonder to myself if you even realize when you're living through all this that these things are these, you know, legendary shows and legendary bands and important people. You know, you had a quote on your book from Vinny Stigma. Speaking of legends, from Agnostic Front, saying, "Thank God we had girls like Nancy back then to keep things in order." And Vinny's always been outspoken about how much of a SSD fan he is, and how Al's his favorite guitarist. You want to talk about your relationship with Vinny, how that started, and what you think he meant by that quote?
Yeah. So when I was managing Sadistic Exploits, one of the first things like I wanted to do was to get them shows in New York, you know. So I started calling Hilly Crystal at CBGB's, right? And I was like relentless. He would be like, "Yeah, you know, call me tomorrow," and I would call him tomorrow and be like, "All right, call me at 4 o'clock," and I call him at 4 o'clock, you know. And
Yeah.
so finally, I think he just said like, excuse me, I think he just said like, "Let me just give this woman a show so I can get her off my, you know, butt." So you know, the Exploits played up in New York, and the crowd was like super receptive. We met the guys in the mob, and so that's where I met Vinny and you know, Louis from Antidote and Jimmy G and John Watson and Chris Cheruki and Bubby and like all those guys. Like, you know, they were so great. You know, they were just so great, and we became friends because, you know, Philly, New York's only an hour and a half away.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we would go up on the train all the time and go to shows. You know, once we knew where those places were and how to get to and stuff, I would go up all the time. And so, you know, we just all became friends, you know, and you know, booked that show. And so, you know, I think the guys kind of appreciated the, you know, the female presence and also that we got shit done, you know, like we, you know, my best friend Allison was, you know, she's super smart and together, and she, you know, organized things too. And so like, you know, there were a lot of women in the scene that were, you know, making stuff happen. So
I want to get some info on that. Actually, that leads into one of my next questions, because I feel like there's a lot of women that don't get enough due. You know, in New York, you know, you had bands like Even Worse, and then you know, the original Beastie Boys with the original drummer who ended up in Luscious Jackson. I cannot remember her name, but there were a lot of notable women that I think probably deserve more recognition. Do you want to? Do you feel like there are some people that deserve a shout out that maybe you remember from back then that were contributing and doing some great things creatively or behind the scenes?
yeah, I mean, there were you know, the women that you're speaking of now, you know, were amazing. In Philadelphia, there were a lot of women on stage. Becky Reck played drums. Our friend Lisa Morrow sang for a band called The Excuses. There was a girl named Allison that was in the Sick Kids. You know, there was this woman named Beth Ann Lehman, who was probably one of the most groundbreaking, innovative women that I've ever known. She played in a band called the Stickmen, and you know, could play every instrument forever. And she like did performance art. You know, there was a band called Head Cheese that were all, it was all women in Philly, and they would like just kind of like bang on drums. And like, you know, I was not a fan, but I was jealous that they had the guts to get up there on stage and do it, you know. And you know, I liked a lot of punk rock bands that had female singers, you know, like I loved the Avengers, were one of my favorite
Oh yeah,
bands.
yeah, yeah.
You know, like Penelope was amazing. I love Becky Bondage, you know, and Vice Squad, you know, like there were a lot of really good um, female, you know, contributors from this on the stage and stuff. And so like I kind of, you know, I remember in the book, I say this, there was somebody, you know, some academic wrote an article about Philadelphia and kind of was like, you know, we were the nurturers, you know, the behind the scenes people. And I was like, you know, I wouldn't accept that kind of sloppy research from a 14-year-old in my
Wow.
sophomore class, you know, like there were tons of women on stage in Philly, especially. You know, Philly was a great place for women. And so like I was kind of mad they didn't do their, you know, they didn't do their homework. But like even like Patti Smith, you know, growing up, and Patti Smith was one of my idols. And
Yeah.
I used to write her mother letters, you know, and her mother would write me back these like big long letters on, you know, yellow legal paper and stuff, you know. Like when I saw her and what she was doing, and you know, she would mention a book, I'd run out and buy it, you know, like,
Right,
you
right,
know,
right,
I
right.
read it. You know, she was talking about I don't know, any author that she talked about. William Burroughs. Okay, I'm reading William Burroughs now, you know, like anything, you know, that she said I wanted to do. So like, yeah, there were a lot of cool women that did not get their due, you know.
Absolutely, and I really think it's great that you're highlighting that, and you know, just all the history that we're learning here. So I got to ask you, just I don't want to get into the drama too much, but like, why? What it seemed like there was such a tight knit community back then, and like you said, it was not like violence at shows at the time so much as violence against cops and people coming at you from the outside.
Right.
But like, when and why did this like Boston, New York rivalry happen? What is that all about? You know, I didn't live through that, so I didn't really understand how that even came to be a thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell it from my perspective, okay? Because, and like, you know, not speaking for anybody but me, okay?
Yeah, sure,
So,
sure.
you know, let me say that. Boston guys were super physical, you know, they were big, they were skateboarders, they were energetic, you know? And so they would go to shows and, you know, have a good time. And I never felt any schisms between New York and Boston in those days, like at all. Every time SSD played, you know, they played the Bad Brain show at CBGB's, the one that you see the video,
Yeah.
1982, Irving Plaza with
Oh,
Minor,
wow, that's a
you know,
great
with Minor
show.
Threat, you know, like every time they played there, you know, they were received really, really well. So, that all that you know, anti-Boston stuff, you know, that or you know, Boston New York thing, I didn't see it. So the first time I felt like a little like something's happened here is when SSD Control played the Rock Hotel, and I forget who they played with, you know, and there were some people in the SSD crew who were drunk, but earlier in that day there was a show at a matinee show at CBGB's where, you know, some like, I think they were like joke bands. I know the FUs played, but then there was like a joke band that played and said some stuff that pissed people off, you
Yeah.
know, but we weren't there. We were at, you know, the Rock Hotel. And so then, you know, when people came to the night show, there was a little bit of, you know, and
Friction.
yeah, there's a little bit of friction and like, you know, a little scuffle kind of broke out, you know, but like, you know, that was it, you know. I didn't really notice anything. And years later, Jonathan Anastas, oh, DYS played on that show. So yeah. So years later, Jonathan Anastas told me, well, I got punched in the face at that show. I was like, really? I didn't know that, you know, like, you know, I had forgotten about it by the time I got to the first rest stop because, you know, I said this before, if someone wasn't throwing a bomb at me, you know, if I wasn't taking a punch to the face myself or getting knocked out or, you know, the cops, you know, people weren't chasing me with bats and lead pipes, I didn't really think it was I didn't think it was a big deal. Like if someone didn't end up with 22 stitches in their heads, you know, you took a shot to the face, like, so what, you know, like
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't see it as a big deal, you know. But then that kind of Rock Hotel show, like people were like, oh, you know, we like ran Boston out of town. I was like, what? Like, you know, like I was
Sounds like
there.
some
Like,
weird
yeah, you know,
misunderstanding.
I was definitely there. And so then I know that like the mythology kind of grew out of this. And then I think it was Agnostic Front played in Boston. I think it was Agnostic Front. And like the Boss Tones or somebody, you know, and there was a big fight and we
Wow.
weren't there. Like, you know, most of, you know, I don't think any of the like Boston crew kids were there except Dickie Barrett was there. And Dickie Barrett got his teeth knocked out, I think, and I could be wrong, by like Jimmy.
Oh,
And you
wow.
know, and they're really good friends now, you know. So like I don't know what happened there. But you know, there was just, you know, it was just all this kind of, I don't know, like to me it was like kind of mythology. And by then I was kind of like, well, it's getting stupid now, you know, because
Yeah,
we
you
were
know,
all,
people say stuff and then it gets blown
yeah,
out of
we were
proportion.
all friends at that, you know, like at
Right,
that
right.
point. And like I just, you know, I didn't like to see it devolve like that, you know.
No,
Um,
yeah.
but by like 85, 86, and like those years, then there, you know, there was all this like schism. And you know, I remember seeing Harley say in the American Hardcore vid, you know, like we went down and like, you know, we ruled on like Boston Crew. I was like, you didn't do shit, you know, like I was,
I saw
you
that.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you know, like that never happened. And I heard a podcast one time where, you know, John Joseph said something. I'm like, it didn't happen. Like, you know, I was been with Al for like 38 years. And, you know, Al's always said too, like if it happened, I'd be the first one to like, you know, talk about it. Like I know Dickie and Jimmy talk about it, you know, like it's not a
Right,
big,
right,
you
right.
know, it's not a big deal. So yeah, that kind of stuff kind of got all like in the early days, I'm telling you, New York was really welcoming to, you know, to SSD. And you know, you can hear it from Vinny and
Oh, absolutely,
Roger.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, so we have about 10 minutes left. I told
Oh,
you it's going to go
Jesus.
by quick.
I did.
But I do want to just while we're on here, like you mentioned a little bit about getting bombed at a Dead Kennedy show, which is a chapter in the book. That is a wild, wild story. And we'll see what we can fit in here. But I'm just giving people who are watching some insight into what's in the book because I want people to buy it
Absolutely.
and check it out. There are some great stories in there about Black Flag and TSOL and all this great stuff. The Dead Kennedys one, man, is crazy. But let's talk to me about Bad Brains for a second. I just am selfishly going to ask because we referred to that photo a few times. It's a great photo of you sitting on stage, I believe, right in front of Jennifer, maybe.
Yep, yep, right in
Bass.
front of Daryl.
Yeah,
Yes.
man. Like, so were they the greatest band ever?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Like you can, and that was one thing. Like when Al and I first talked on the phone, he was, like, you did like, who's your favorite band? And I was like, the Bad Brains. And he was like, so, that was like a solidifier for both of us. That was, we both like acknowledged their supremacy.
Yeah, yeah.
So my friends were in a band called Autistic Behavior, and they had told me, like, once you see the Bad Brains, your life will change, And I was like, okay, yeah, like whatever, And so it was at the Elk Center. And I remember there were two little kids there, like they were like 13. Zeke Zagar, who's the son of Isaiah Zagar, who's a famous artist in Philly, and then his friend Jeff. And I just wanted to make sure nothing happened to them at that show, So I was kind of in the back, like, keeping an eye on them, making sure they were okay. And I heard like that intro to Big Takeover, and I was like, what the fuck is this, like, and it just like, it was like a magnetic pull. I was like instantly right at the front of the stage. And I was just like, you can see the look in my face in that photo.
Well,
like,
yeah, you look like you're in awe. Like
I am in awe. I was like, this band, I've never seen anything like it. Like, I never saw anybody play that fast, that well, song structured so incredibly, so much energy, so much coolness on stage. Like, I was like, oh my God. And that's when I made a vow to myself right then and there, I will see this band and wherever they play in a tri-state area region. So if I heard they were like playing in Jersey, I was like, let's go. We're going to see them. And we did, I probably saw the Bad Brains 20 times.
Jesus, I am jealous of anyone that got to see them because I did not. I saw them after the fact,
Yeah, and then
were they playing reggae back then? At that point?
So yeah, sometimes so they had just started like playing in between, but I liked the reggae stuff, like, and kind of needed a break sometimes, So like, I didn't mind it as long as they played the fast stuff too,
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, so music started to change. There was the crossover period. SSD started changing up their vibe. So did Agnostic Front, and then Ian starts Fugazi. You and Al seem to kind of embrace the changes, and then because I follow you, and like I love the stories of how you still would go see Fugazi, and how when punk got huge, and Chris Novoselic and Nirvana was wearing SSD shirts on stage. Crazy. You guys would still go out to shows. And I think that if there's one thing to learn from observing you and Al and your book, it's that the hardcore punk community and the scene really is just that. It's not a genre of music. You're still friends with all of these people. You're writing a book about it. You were on New York Hardcore Chronicles last night. Now you're on Age of Quarantine. How cool it is, I think. It's not so much a question more than an observation that you're a living embodiment that for anybody watching, young and old, that the hardcore community really is a lifestyle.
It's a counterculture. It's absolutely like something, and that's like when I started writing the book and doing the book, I was like, why am I still talking about hardcore 40 years later? Like, did it? And I realized it has impacted me in everything that I've done. Like, so many of my dear friends are, people that I met in and through hardcore. My girlfriends up here, Jackie, Bridget, Terry, Angie, like they're all the people that I've known for 38 years. And then I have, my friends down home in Philadelphia, we're still friends, and so, and I don't know, it was incredibly empowering is I guess the thing that I want to say. And we lived
Absolutely.
through something that was, you know, even at the time I knew was special. Like I knew when I was seeing those shows, I knew they were special. I knew I was part of something, you know, that was really cool. And I was, you know, thrilled to be a part of it, you know, and a contributor.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so you know, to this day, it's had a huge impact on the way I teach and the way I live my life, you know,
Well, yeah,
like
because you're a teacher, and I think that's so cool. What are you, a high school teacher?
I'm a high school teacher, high school English teacher. Yeah.
What grade are you teaching?
Right now I teach juniors and seniors.
Okay, got it. They have an interesting age group to be
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. They're
Do,
great. They're great. My kids are great. Yeah.
do you have
Yeah.
any hardcore kids or
Yeah. Like every
people?
once in a while, like every really, you know, really, really rarely. Like when I first started, I had a kid named Bobby Mosca. He was like, it was like 1999, and he, loved hardcore and he knew his shit really well, you know. And so he wasn't even my student, you know, he just knew who I was. So he'd come in my room and he'd just like pepper me with questions like you're doing now, like, you know, like, hey,
Yeah.
this, you know, what happened here, you know, like whatever. And a funny story about Bobby is I love the kid so much. Like he used to come on field trips and he wasn't even my student, you know. I loved him so much. When he graduated, I wanted to give him something special. And I had a minor threat out of step test pressing and I had a get it
Oh
away
my
test
God.
pressing. And I gave them to him for his graduation. Like
Stop it.
I
Stop
did
it.
not kind of realize what I had, you know?
Oh man.
And so I gave them away. And then, you know, like, of course, 10 years, 15 years later, I'm like, oh, wow, I can't believe I did that, you know? So,
I
but
hope he kept it and
so
valued
he
it.
did. And so then listen what happened. So like 2 years ago, he called me on the phone and he was like, because we kept in touch and stuff. And he's like, you know, he was married and he was having a, you know, they were having a baby. And he said, I think it's time to sell these records. And so he was like, if you help me sell them, I'll I'll give you half the money, you know? And so
Wow.
at the time I was trying to do a field trip to New York City for my students. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll help you. So I'm like, they'll go like that. You know, I put it up on Instagram. They were gone in like seven,
Oh,
you know, by 7 hours, the deal was sealed, you know? And
jeez.
so, you know, we split the money and it was great. You know, like I got to take my kids on this great field trip. He got, you know, you know, so, it, you know, it all ended in a very, very happy ending, but like, that's how, you know, I was so happy there was a hardcore kid, you know. And I know there's a girl at my school right now who's a hardcore a girl. I haven't met her yet because of remote learning, but I think she follows me on Instagram. She might even be out there
It's
tonight.
a whole thing
If
all over
if you
again.
are Chloe, hello.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, my kids mostly like hip hop and techno. You know, one
Okay.
time I was walking in the hallway and I saw a kid in a bad brain shirt, and I was like, oh my god,
Oh my
stop! You know,
God.
like taking pictures of him. You know, and he was like, yeah, I like to explore, you know, new music, and I was like, wow, you're
That's
so cool.
amazing.
You know, yeah, but
Nancy,
it's very rare.
let's make sure that before Instagram kicks us off in 3 minutes that we tell everybody where they can buy the book. It's out on Bazillion Points is the name of the you want to drop the socials and the website and all
Yeah,
of
it's
that stuff.
bazillionpoints.com. You can also get it on Amazon if that's your preferred method, or, you know, whatever other way. And it's pre-sales right now, but it ships next week. So yeah, it's bazillionpoints.com.
That's
So
amazing. And again, the book is called I'm Not Holding Your Coat, My Bruises, and All Memoir of Punk Rock Rebellion, written by you, Nancy Barille. And it's a great read. I need to get the physical copy. I'm going to order one online myself because I have the online version right now.
yeah, the
Thank you for
online.
that. And I really hope that in a non-COVID world that you can get to doing maybe a book tour or
Please, I
some
hope.
speaking events, you
I'm
know?
really hoping. I'm dreaming of that. You know, I've been planning that, you know, for even before I wrote the book, I was planning the party, you know.
Absolutely. Anybody that tuned in too late, this entire interview in about 5 minutes will be up on the St. Vitus Instagram channel from the very beginning. And if you look me up on YouTube, Christopher Enriquez, I have a channel up there, and this will be on there at some point within the next week or two. But Nancy, this has been so cool.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was really fun.
I could have gone on for another hour if Instagram wasn't kicking us off.
I know. Damn those Instagram people.
Well, if you ever end up in New York, please reach out, because I would love to sit down and do a part 2 or do something where we can talk more about these stories, because I can't get enough of them. I love history of all this stuff, and the archival shit. It gets me going. So.
All right. Awesome. Yes,
Yeah.
I'll be totally down with that. And same if you're ever in Boston, let me know.
I absolutely will. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yes. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Is
Talk
it going to
you
kick
soon.
us off? Yeah.
Good luck, Nancy. Happy
All right.
holidays to you and Al.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. That was so much fun. Please order Nancy's book and get a great history in American hardcore. And that's all I have to say about that. Take care. We'll see